Parsha Shelach deals with the mitzvah of tzitzis. So we'll discuss some inyani tzitzis. The Gemara Menachos and the Lamed Tesam and Aleph has a machlokas, Rav Nachman and Rava, on what type of beged is obligated in tzitzis. We know if you're wearing a four-cornered garment, one is obligated to wearing tzitzis. Are there any limitations or restrictions on what type of beged one must wear? So that's a machlokas Amoraim, a machlokas in the Rishonim, Yachronim, Machaber Ramah, Ashkenaz, Sfard. And in fact, we even paskin some machlokas in the Gemara. What about a five-cornered garment? We paskin Yechayev to put tzitzis on a five-cornered garment. It'll be only four corners. But we paskin Yechayev. And so Rabbi says all begadim are chayev in tzitzis except for leather. We'll see leather. We'll get to why leather should be exempt. And Rav Nachman says this wool and linen, beger or tzemer, only wool and linen is defined as a beged. And I say, oh beged, oh or isn't a beged. So that's the way the Svardim paskin, like the Machaber, that only wool and linen are chayev min haTorah. Well, according to the Ramah, afilu shar begadim. So the nafkamina, if one wears a cotton beged, so according to everybody, if you're wearing a four-cornered cotton garment, talis katan, you're chayev in tzitzis. According to the Machaber, you only be chayev midrabanan because it's not wool or linen. And according to the Ramah, b'nei Ashkenaz, you fulfill your mitzvah min haTorah as well with wearing a cotton beged. So the minig Yisrael is a talis gadol. I haven't seen any cotton ones. Basically, we go with the minig Yisrael is wool. However, regarding talis katan, yesh v'yesh. Some wear wool, some wear cotton. In fact, you expect that b'nei Brak, where people are usually more machmir than the average Hamonam. Yet, based on the Chazon Ish, the Stipler, based on the Gra, apparently the Gra used to wear a cotton talis katan. So that's the meaning of Bnei Brak. Why did the Gra wear a Safek Daraisa? Why not go? So some say it's a Chumrin Hilchas Shatnis. That I guess back in his day, they used to have linen shirts or sweaters or whatever you wore, and there was concern you didn't want to have the wool touch the linen, even though Maker Adin, it's not a problem, but at Schumra you didn't want to have wool and linen on top of one another. So therefore, it was a Chumra in Hilchas Shatnis and perhaps a Kula in Hilchas Tzitzis. And others say no, they had nothing to do with it. He wore a talis gadol all the time, so he wanted to have a talis katan of katan so he could fulfill both a mitzvah midrabanan perhaps and a mitzvah midaraisa. Either way, whatever the reason is, that was the minhag of the Gra, and seems to be the practice in Bnei Brak that people wear a cotton talis katan. So there's and yet Rav Moshe in every tshuva he writes in the Mishnah Brura, they write Bali, even though it's a machok. So even though talis is only a mitzvah's kiyumis, in other words, there's no obligation per se of wearing a four-cornered garment. If you're wearing a four-cornered garment, you're chayev in tzitzis. So number one, it's optional. Yet, even though you don't even have to wear it, but Rav Moshe and others are machmir that if you are going to wear it, you should wear a woolen. We see, the picture of Rav Moshe in the Catskills wearing his big talis gadol of wool, talis katan of wool over his shirt. He always felt one should be machmir. So it seems strange, tzitzis is a mitzvah kiyumis. It's not even a mandatory mitzvah. So the fact I'm wearing a four-cornered garment is already a chumrah. And now I have another chumrah, has to be wool. And even more than that, we have another machlokas. We have another famous machlokas regarding tzitzis. Besides wool and linen versus cotton, The Torah says Uri'isam also, you have to see them. There are those who say it means that you should wear your tzitzis outside. Some dafka say al pi kaboah, don't wear them outside. That's not what it means. What it means, Uri'isam also, it means it's a mitzvah during the day. It's a mitzvah saseh shazman grama. So the Rambam learns computo. Yom versus Laila. It doesn't make a difference what I'm wearing, it's when I'm wearing it. If it's a four-cornered garment and it's during the day, I'm chayiv. If it's a four-cornered garment and it's at night, there is no mitzvah. And the Rush disagrees and says, it's not a din in Yom versus Laila, it's a din of Beged Yom versus Beged Laila. If I'm wearing a daytime beged, even at night I'm chayiv. And if I'm wearing a nighttime beged, if I'm wearing it during the day, I'd be putter. That's why it's a discussion, why is it a Zman Grama then? Bishlam, according to the Rambam, it's a Zman Grama, it's totally in Zman, but according to the Rush. So that's what the Tosas discusses. Yeah, it's true, it's totally in the beged, but Zman does play a role. Zman defines whether it's considered a beged Yom and beged Laila. The bottom line is, we assume it's a mitzvah saseh shazman grama. So I guess nafkamina, let's say you have a four-cornered blanket, four-corner wool blanket. Is one obligated to put tzitzis on? So according to the Rambam, it has to do with Yom versus Laila. So in theory, if you sleep and it's on night, so maybe in theory you'd have to put on. According to the Rush, it's a beged Laila, so you'd be exempt. The Magen Avraham discusses it, but even for Choshesh, for sheets, according to the Rush, it's not a beged Laila, perhaps. But he says, perhaps maybe doesn't have a din of a beged, you're only wrapping yourself in it. And the Mishnah Berurah says to be machmir, since it's a kavya machlokas Rambam Rush, one should round off the blanket to three corners, so therefore you avoid the shaila. So we have one machlokas, whether wool or linen. So no, we have one issue. Tzitzis is a mitzvah kiyumis. It's a conditional mitzvah. I'm wearing a four-corner garment. Then within the mitzvah kiyumis, we have a machlokas whether you dafka have to wear wool or cot is good. Then you have another machlokas about what does it mean. Urisama, so is the exemption based on zman or it's based on the beged. And we have a third machlokas regarding a talis katan. How big does a talis katan have to be? So the Gemara seems to say the size of a katan, 9 years old, it covers him rosh of a rubo, or perhaps what a doe would go out ba'akrai on occasion outside. But ours is too small. According to many of the poskim, our talis katan is too small. So the Magen Avraham, it's better to wear a questionable measurement and no tzitzis at all. But that's why Rabbi Yaakov says, because of that we should make a bracha on the tal if you're married, or if you're wearing a talis gado, you're a Sephardi, you should make the bracha on the talis gado. And that seems to be the practice. And Talmidei Bris, they don't wear a talis katan on Shabbos, because they hold that maybe they don't wear a talis katan because maybe it's not a big enough shear, and therefore the beged is derech malbush, but perhaps the sitzes, the fringes lying down are not. And Ramosha, that it's muta, even says it's a minig Yisrael, you can even make a bracha on it. But the minig Yisrael is anyway, if you're married or if you're a Sephardi, if you're wearing a talis kado, you make it on there. So that's the shiloh. What's pshat? We have, number one, it's a mitzvah kiyumis. I don't even have to do it. Secondly, according to many Rishonim, cotton is I fulfill my mitzvah in our Torah. And it's a shiloh whether even the talis katan is even big enough. And yet, Rav Moshe and other poskim seem to say you should wear wool. What's the special inyan of, and why are we so machmir on tzitzis, and even without wool? Why are we so machmir on tzitzis? It seems to be one chumrah agabe chumrah. Why If it's so important, why didn't the Torah mechayev us, like tefillin? We have to wear. Why is it optional, and yet the poskim spend a lot of time working out why we should be doing it? So there's a piece from Tzaddik HaKohen. We say, where do we see the concept of clothing for the first time? By Adam HaRishon. And Adam HaRishon didn't wear clothes until he sinned. So, and that's from the word beged, from the word begida, rebellion. But there's another word for beged, levush, malbush, from ashamed. That's a good thing. You're ashamed when you do something bad. So what is the significance of clothing? The yeshivish terminology, is it a siman or a siba? In other words, let's say Group A dresses a certain way, and they come to Minyan, they learn, they're more meticulous in mitzvahs. Group B doesn't come to Minyan so much, they don't daven as well, they don't learn. Is there any relevance for the fact, should I say, since Group A comes to Minyan davens, if I should dress the way they dress? Is it a siba because of their dressing that way, therefore it's causing them to come on time? Or no, it's just a siman. So that's a discussion. So, like they point out, I heard from, I think it was Azriel Talber, 25 years ago, maybe longer, that there's a machlokas Mesilas Yesharim and the Chafetz Chaim. The Mesilas Yesharim writes, he says on the importance of the outside, that you work on your outside and then your inside will follow. And the Chafetz Chaim writes, there are a lot of fakers around today, you have to work on your inside. So Reb Tal will point out, we see, it's not so modern anymore, but at the time of the Mashal it was, that we know, and it still applies, though, the message, a conventional oven, you put a hamburger in, it cooks the outside, then the inside. But a microwave, that gets right down to the root. Today we have to work, everyone agrees you need both. It's a machlokas, which one do you work on first. So on one hand, clothes is a sheker. As Rav Tzadok writes, it's certainly a sheker ala avar. Like if I put on a military suit, does that make me an army person? If I put on a chassid shakar, does it make a chassid? No. Obviously, ala avar tells me nothing about the person's past. But ulai, perhaps, it tells you something about the future. Like they point out, we know sheker, ein bo raglayim, sheker has no legs, because all the letters are right next to each other, emes yesho raglayim. So perhaps it's the emes on, how's it emes on the future? There's a famous O. Henry story, the clothes make the man. The clothes make the man, that basically is the brain and the brawn. They have a great idea, they're going to break into a jewelry store. The brawn guy dresses up like a policeman, and the brain guy will go through the chimney or get into the building. So he says, when the alarm goes off, so they'll see the police officer there, and then no one will call the police. Sounds like a good idea. So, okay, that's the way it's working. The person's like, he looks in the window and he sees the reflection. Wow, this really looks good on me. And he helps the woman across the street. He starts helping people. All of a sudden, he sees this guy robbing the jewelry store. So he says, he goes to the police. Please, everyone, come and get this guy. That's what happens when you rely on the brawn guy. But what's the yisod? Was this guy a tzaddik? Far from a tzaddik. He was a crook. However, when he looked at himself in the mirror and saw he was wearing this police uniform, there's something la'asid made him feel good. So why isn't, if since this is so important, why didn't God make a mandatory like tefillin? Because especially by clothing, but it's true in other things as well, to force you to wear something means nothing. To force you to wear a suit, force you to wear these clothes, isn't meaningful. It has to come. You want to be wearing the uniform of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You want to wear tzitzis. Like I spoke to someone who, different people hiring different bosses, they tell me there's a 9 to 5 guy, and then there's a person who really appreciates his job, and if something has to be done, he'll stay later. So that's what tzitzis is. He's not looking for someone who has to wear tzitzis. He's looking for someone who wants to wear tzitzis. And that's what the Gra explains to others, the spiritual ladder, that someone could be on the 25th step and someone could be on the 5th step. If the guy on the 5th step is going to the 6th, but the guy on the 25th is going down to the 24th, in God's eyes it could be the one on the 5th store is higher. Because in Judaism we go not by station, by direction. And that's why we know that the Maharal writes that by the angels, when Yaakov was sleeping, it says they were making a switch of the guard. The Chutz La'aretz angels and the Israel angels. The question is, why are they switching now? They weren't at the border. In fact, it was in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And the answer is, you could be in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. If your mind's on Chutz La'aretz, we view you as Chutz La'aretz now. Just like we say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso after Ne'ilah. We say Baruch Shem Kavod right after Kol Nidre. We just had a full meal. Would it make sense 25 hours later before Ma'ariv we should be saying Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso out loud? And the answer is no, because true you had a full meal, but right now your mind is on Ruchnius, your mind is on davening. But at the end, your mind is on, what am I breaking the fast on? Pizza, lasagna, French onion soup, salmon. So therefore, that's the yisod here. The yisod of tzitzis is, beged is sheker, but God wants you to put yourself in a situation where He sees a person wants to do it. And that's the whole yisod of the mitzvah and tzitzis, and that's why even though Me'ikar Adin, if you're wearing a four-corner garment, you're exempt. Nevertheless, Klal Yisrael has been machmir all along to continue wearing a four-corner garment to show that we desire to wear the begadim from HaKadosh. Parashat Shelach begins with the story of the Meraglim, the spies. And there's a famous Klei Yakar in the beginning of the parasha on Shlach Lecha Anoshim, that God, that with the beginning of the parasha where they sent out the Meraglim. So what does the Klei Yakar say? Lefi she'amru Yisrael nishcha lefneinu anashim. He says, first Rashi quotes Lecha l'daitcha. I'm not telling you to send spies. If you want spies, then go ahead and do it. But it's not my idea. I don't need to. I already told you. And I told Avram we're going to Eretz Yisrael. We don't need to send spies. But if you want it, I'm not going to stop you. So that's Rashi quoting from Chazal. So what's the pshat lecha? So the Klei Yakar writes, lecha v'lo lahem. Yeah, it's good. It's good for you, Moshe. But it's not going to be good for Klal Yisrael. Why is it good for you, but not good for Klal Yisrael? Ki lecha davka yeh hashchichos lahana u'letovasa, aval lahem lo yeh letovasa. Why? Ki ha'idei shlichus zeh nigzera aleya misa, because of the sin of the spies, it would go their death. Many of the people would not enter the land of Israel now. However, Moshe garam shechai od mem shana, but Moshe gained from this incident that he got to live another 40 years. Ki kfar gazer al Moshe, because the Gzeira was already against Moshe, that he wasn't going to enter the land of Israel. So whenever the Jews entered the land of Israel, that was going to be his death. So the fact that he sent them, that shows that the fact that they went gave him extra years. So that's the first pshat in the Klei Yakar lecha. For you it's great, not for Klal Yisrael. A second explanation is Shlach lecha is Anoshim chashuvim be'enai. people who are chashav in your eyes. In other words, many, as the Chafetz Chaim said, many said that many phonies, people who get covered on the outside, people think they're chashav, but really they're nothing special if you really know them. So I'm not going to let anyone pick the spies, but I want Shlacha Anashim Chashuvim. I want you to pick the slaves. I want you to pick the spies, because you'll know exactly who's deserving of this honor. And A3 of the Koyakar is Shlachacha Anashim. You picked out the men. Hanashim Hayusonim Es Haaretz. They're the people who showed distaste and contempt for the land. Va'amra Nasna Rosh V'Nashuva Mitzrayim. Let's go back to Egypt. They sinned by the Cheda Ego. V'Hanashim Hayu Mechavos Haaretz. But the women, they're the one who showed love to Eretz Yisrael. Tnulanu Achuza. Like the B'no Srafchad. According to me, who sees the future, they're not going to speak evil about the land. But you want to pick the men. Anashim, about Ladaiti. You know, says Ladaitcha, and based on your knowledge about Ladaiti, God saying, Hayayote Tov L'Shloach Nashim. But, and of course God was right, and even though He sent great men, but they were nextra. What motivated the spies to give an evil report? Obviously they were great people. Anashim Chashuvim. So there's a famous Zohar that says they had a Nagia. They were biased, meaning on a subconscious level. They realized that the Anhaga is going to change. The Anhaga in the Dor HaMidbar is through miracles, the Mon, the Bear. And when they entered Eretz Yisrael, they're going to have to work for a living. They have to plant, agricultural. And they realized it was no longer to be the Ochle Haman. And they felt that the higher level was this sitting, learning all day, eating from the man. And obviously for that 40-year time period, that's what the Jewish people needed, or that's what God decided they were going to have. But now they're going to enter Eretz Yisrael, it's going to be a different Haggah, so therefore, that was the mistake. And that's what it says, as we say in Parashas Mishpatim, Anshe Kodesh only have enough malachim, enough angels are sitting around just doing whatever has to be done, the robots. But I'm looking for Anshe Kodesh, I'm looking for Kedoshim, people who are going to live in this world and be holy, take in the Olam Hazeh and live a life of Derech HaTeva. And that was according to the Zohar, or the Arizal, one of the two, that was the sin of the Meraglim, that they had good motivations, but they erred in thinking that they should continue to live like the Dor HaMidbar, and God said, no. We want you to have, when we enter Eretz Yisrael, Derech HaTeva is the best way for human beings. At the end of the Parsha of Shelach, it discusses the Indian of the Makoshesh Eitzim, Ayu B'nai Yisrael BaMidbar, and the Jewish people were in the Midbar, Vayibzeu Ish Makoshesh Eitzim B'Yom HaShabbos. And they found the person, let's assume, gathering wood on Shabbos. Vayakrivo also Amotzim also Makoshesh Eitzim, they brought him to Moshe and Aaron. Vayinich also BaMidbar, they put him into jail because they weren't sure what to do. Vayom Hashem Moshe, Mos Yuma Seish, Ragam also Ba'avanim Kol Eida Michutz Kamachaneh. Vayose also Kol Eida Michutz Kamachaneh, Ragam also Ba'avanim Vayomos Kasher Tiva Hashem as Moshe. So the story of the Makoshes Eitzim, that someone, the first Machal Shabbos in Jewish history, he went ahead, it was Machal Shabbos, they put him in jail, and God said to give him mitzvah. So the question is, number one, BaMidbar. Why is the Midbar relevant? Like, let's say he was in New York, L.A., Toronto, Chicago. It seems to be, the Torah seems to be singling out the Midbar. But BaMidbar, and then also I already know, we learned before that when is Machal Shabbos, most Yuma. So what do you mean they didn't know what to do with him? So we'll have to see. So the Gemara in Shabbos has a discussion regarding the status of the Midbar, whether it's a din of Rishus Harabim or a din of a Carmelist. And the Gemara says it depended different times. One time when the Jews were in the Midbar, another time now when they're not in the Midbar. But the Gemara is not clear which is which. So the way Rashi learns the Gemara is the Jews in the Midbar, that's when they violated, they had 600,000 Jews, and according to Rashi you need 600,000 for Rishus Harabim. And therefore when the Jews in the Midbar, so it was, and now in the Midbar it's a Kamala. So that's why it was Machal Shabbos Min HaTorah. And according to the Rambam, that while the Jews were traveling in the Midbar, it wasn't a Rishus Harabim because they were on the Hakava, there were clouds of glory. But Bisman Azeh, there is no clouds of glory, so then it would be a Deraisa. You don't need 600,000. Alright, so according to the Rambam, that when the Jews traveled in the Midbar, because of the clouds of glory, there's no mitzvah, there's no, he doesn't have a din of Rishus Harabim, so why was the Makoshesh Eitzim put to death? That you have to explain. There are other opinions in the Gemara what he did. Maybe it could have been another Malacha, Ma'amir, different forms, different types of possibilities. So either way, according to the Rambam, you'd have to say it's a different Malacha besides Hosa. That's why we had to single out the Midbar. You focus on whether it was a Shus Harabim or not, and then if according to the Rambam, you have to come up with some other reason. There's a famous Gemara in Baba Basra, Daf Kuf Yud Tes, that discusses our question. Tosas over there quote discussing that Moshe knew that you were chayav misa for being machal Shabbos, but he didn't know which misa. We know that different types of misa is based in the skila, sreifa, hereg, and chenek. So there are 4 different types of misa based, and Moshe didn't know which type of misa is based in. So therefore, he pointed out he wanted to find out. He put him in jail to find out what it was. So Tosfos quotes with the Medrash that really we had a picture of this Makoshesh Eitzim as there must be a big Russia. The first Machal Shabbos in Jewish history must be a pretty bad guy. Yet the Tosfos says he was a tzaddik hayah. He wanted to save Klal Yisrael. He wanted to save the Jewish people. How? Because that's what the Medrash says. What's the smichas of parshas between the Meraglim and the Makoshesh Eitzim? Because after the sin of the Meraglim, people thought that was it. God rejected them. The Torah doesn't apply anymore, and that's the end of it. So he went ahead. He wanted a Machal Shabbos to show that, look, the Torah is still intact, and if you don't keep them, you're going to get punished. So he went ahead and he violated Shabbos biblically in order to get killed, so he could teach this lesson. And the kasha is obvious. I mean, there are many other ways of teaching people. We know, we're familiar with the kiruv professionals today. We have many yeshivas, or sameach, Eisha Torah. Yeah, JSS, I don't know what they call it today, but there are many different, and you also have kiruv institutions in their own right. So don't you think that there's a better way of educating them? Of course, it's true, it might not have the same impact. If you tell someone not to talk, is one thing. When you throw a snake down and say, if you can talk, you're going to get by a snake, it might have a greater impact, at least for that time. But, so why couldn't they just teach the lesson through education or some other means? Why do you have to go ahead and do it through Torah Shabbos? So the Maharsha points out, we have a principle in the Gemara that you only violate Shabbos biblically when you violate something that was done the way it was done in the Mishkan. If it was done in a different manner, so it's only a D'Rabbanan. For instance, normally when you violate carrying, you want to go from place A to place B. But if I move something from A to B, not because I want it in B, because I want it out of A, so then that's not a malacha d'oraisa, that's a malacha she'ein tzricha gufa, a machlokas in the Gemara. That's the way we assume. And so too here, since he had kavana to teach Klal, his kavana, it wasn't carrying because he wanted pieces of wood. He was carrying to teach a lesson. So therefore, it was only a malacha she'ein tzricha gufa, and therefore he wasn't. And at that point, there weren't any dinim d'Rabbanan. So really, it was heter gomer. If it was heter gomer, so why was he killed? Because Dvarim Shevalev Eino Dvarim, how does Beis Din know what his intentions are? As the Rebbe talks about, we can't accept tshuva in the Beis Din Shalmata, because how would you can never kill anyone because maybe they did tshuva. So either way, that's what the Maharsha talks about there, that Beis Din had to kill him, but nevertheless tzaddik haya. And in fact, the kasha is, but still we have a biblical it's true, maybe he wasn't machal Shabbos, but we have a biblical prohibition of ma'abid atzmo adas, to commit suicide, to let yourself be killed. So he knew he was going to be killed. So how he's allowed to put himself in a situation where he knew he'd be killed? Isn't that a ma'abid atzmo adas? So we know, the Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin and other places, for the big three, one has an obligation to give up the life al kiddush Hashem, not to murder, not to commit adultery, not to worship idols. That's the big three. So the shaila is, what about someone puts a gun to you and says, eat treif? So if he's doing treif, because perhaps if it's somewhat, it's a discussion on when it applies, but if he's doing it lahavir al adat, to make a mockery out of religion, so then there's a discussion on that. And the Rabbi, but let's assume now a case is he's doing it where you're not obligated to give up your life. It's a case where it's lahanas atzmo. He's hungry, so he wants you to turn on the barbecue and barbecue some ribs and steaks. He hasn't killed it at Shabbos. So am I allowed to not machal Shabbos and give up my life? Because we have a general rule for the big three, one is obligated. Better to die with that sin not on your soul. But for the other 610, we say v'chai b'hem. So it's clearly not obligated to give up your life. Is one permitted to? Are you allowed to give up your life let's say I don't want to machal Shabbos, I don't want to eat treif, whatever the case may be, am I allowed to do that am I obligated to do that? Am I allowed not to do that to save my life? So Tosfos writes, yes, you don't have to commit an Aveira. To avoid an Aveira, one is permitted, has the right to give up the life al kiddush Hashem. And the Rambam says no. That if you're not obligated, it's asur. It's ma'abid atzmo adas. So therefore, how could you do it? So if that's the case, then according to the Rambam, according to Tosfos, I understand. So the Makoshet Eitzim, who Rabbi Akiva defined as srafchad, because that's why it wasn't Lashon Hara, because he said it was Schafchad and he did a good thing. But either way, according to the Rambam, if you don't have to give up your life at Tasha, so how do you explain Schafchad? So Schafchad was one of the Gedolei Yisrael, one of the leaders. And therefore, even the Rambam who holds it's Asur, if you're not obligated, he quotes in the Mukhe Yosef, but there are certain times that if it's an Adam Gadol, a Gadol Hador, Mizmam and Azman, they have the right to make a judgment call of something is lax. So if in this case, Chilul Shabbos, the Torah, was going to be Nishkach, so therefore Schafchad felt he had obligation to make that judgment call and give up his life, Akidah Hashem. So that's the story with the Makoshe Sheitzim. On one hand, based on Torah Shabbat, he's a Rasha. But based on Torah Shabbat, not only is he not a Rasha, but he's a tzaddik. He was Schafchad. He created the situation in order to ensure that Klal Yisrael will continue to keep the Torah.